When you were playing that record, what were you thinking?
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of Take 25. I am your host, Luke Irvin. Here at Take 25, I have conversations with other creatives. They all have one thing in common. They are all connected to Arkansas in some way. So if you're new here, welcome. I ask that you consider subscribing or following this, depending on if you're listening or watching this episode. We're going to try to get new episodes out every Tuesday if possible, or at least that's my goal. But we do have a few episodes out already, so if you're new here, there are plenty of episodes to catch up on, and I've got more scheduled throughout the year, so welcome. So before we get into this, I am also working on getting social accounts created. I have everything created, I just haven't really made those public yet, so be on the lookout for that. Especially if you are a regular listener, I will start linking those here in the nearby future. I'm working on getting more official branding for the show. So once I get all of that complete, expect some updates, and I'll start doing a lot more on social. And I know I've mentioned this before, I do want to get a proper web page or some sort of form where if you have listened and you want to be a guest, you can reach out to me if we're not connected already. So let's get into this episode. In today's episode, I am joined with Jonah Stone. Jonah is the founder of Lucky Pen Productions, and he is a filmmaker. We're continuing to dive into the world of film here in Arkansas, and this is a really fun episode. I learned a lot. We dive into, once again, kind of a homeschool environment and what led to the passion for making films and just the overall process, what it's like to start a business and find the community and get the support you need. So if you're an aspiring filmmaker, I think you'll really enjoy this episode. So let's just go right into it. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy this conversation with myself and Jonah. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining.
Yeah.
So I know we've been chatting a little bit, so some of these may be repeat questions, and I apologize, but this will be good for the listeners. So the one thing I like to start off with is, how are you connected to Arkansas?
Well, I was born in Fort Smith, Arkansas. I've lived in Greenwood pretty much my entire life. I now live in Fort Smith, but I've lived here my entire life. I've known the people. It's everything I've known pretty much forever. I've never lived anywhere else. So, um, it's pretty much home, and I'm hoping to have it be my main location for filming.
That's interesting. We'll probably dive into this a little bit later. I'll have a follow-up question on that for sure.
Yeah.
Because I'm really fascinated by that, because I grew up in a very small town. I grew up in southern Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's such a weird dynamic, especially being a creative. It was one of those, like, we were ready to get out of there.
Right.
And as now that I'm older and with a family, I've always I guess kind of think of like those hometown things of like, if you make it in any way and you can give back, like, would I go back and give back to that hometown? So interesting. We may dive into that later. That's cool. So yeah, I'm like the one-off because like I'm not originally from here.
Right.
My family is like from here, but I was just born elsewhere, and then we just kind of relocated back here.
Right.
So I've lived in a couple of states, but the bulk of my life has been here in Arkansas. That's cool. So kind of growing up, were you very creative growing up? Like, did you work on anything? Were you kind of like an entrepreneurial mindset and try to go do stuff or tinker with things?
I was always pretty much a bit of an entrepreneur, but I never really knew how to actually like get anything done. It was more or less like building stuff with Legos,
Yeah.
and I'd buy a box of Legos and not look at the instructions at all, just create whatever I wanted to. So I was always in that kind of stuff. I never really saw myself as really a creative person necessarily. But kind of growing up, I now look back at everything and I'm thinking, yeah, I had a lot more creativity than I gave myself, because I know me and my brother, we'd always like play video games, and we'd finish like the main story in the game at first, like most notably like Star Wars Battlefront 2, the original Star Wars Battlefront 2, and Jack and Dexter. We would always finish those games, and then once we're done with that, I would just basically tell a story that my brother would play through. It was all made up. It was like our own little version of Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
But we'd basically just I'd tell a story and he would go to like one location after another and just have to do stuff. And so kind of looking back, I've always really had that bit of creativity and a little bit of storytelling in me that I never even saw whenever I was that young, but now I see a lot more whenever I'm much older.
Oh wow, that's cool. That's really fascinating. What about on the education front? Like, did you go to college?
I've not gone to college, no. I was homeschooled starting from the 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I was trying to really look at to what I want to do. I've since I was super young, I've always tried to think about the future, try to think about what I'm going to do, and I always try to focus on that. And so for a very long time, I didn't really know what I want to do because I loved storytelling. I always have, but I wasn't sure how I could do anything about it because being in Arkansas, you don't expect someone to be a producer or a director, an actor, or a video game creator, or whatever these, really great sounding jobs are. You expect to, work a really tough blue collar job, which nothing against those jobs, but you're always told that you can't do stuff like that. So I was thinking, what job can I have that I can still be able to give out my creativeness and my storytelling, but still enjoy it. And so for a long time, I had no idea what that could have been. And I was just like, I'm just going to try to start making films. I got really into YouTube. And so I was thinking, I'm going to start making some films. No one's going to support it because I live in Arkansas, but we're going to give it a try. We're going to see what we can do. And that's kind of where everything really started. And that was back in 2016. And I really started I made my company. I really tried to start working hard on making some films.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I feel like I have somewhat of a similar story, especially growing up in such a small town. Like I was always kind of had the opportunity to be thrown into like technology and computers.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always around that. And we only had one film class in high school, whereas with the computer side of things, it was kind of layered in a lot more. So that was an interesting opportunity because all my friends went film and then I went computer.
Right.
But I've always had a passion for film. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, that's always been the struggle, kind of going back to like, that hometown stuff. Like I've always tried to make it a point if I can go back to my junior high school, whatever, to share my story. Like
Exactly.
you can live here and build apps. You can live here and make movies. You can live here and potentially work for Snapchat, Facebook, whoever.
Exactly.
Like it is possible. And I think over the past 2 years, we definitely see it now. I'll be really fascinated to see like these younger upcoming high schoolers, like what are they going to do when they graduate going these routes? So that's really fascinating. So going deeper into film, what was the big breakout moments? Like, was there any specific film or multiple films that like kind of sparked that interest of like, oh, this is really cool, I want to do this?
So not really. With me being homeschooled, to kind of go back to that question a little bit, with me being homeschooled, I could really focus on kind of what I wanted to do more or less than like in public schools, not to bash public schools, but you're really put in a line as to what jobs are in Arkansas and what you can or cannot do. Where since I've been homeschooled, I was really able to really focus on what I wanted to do, focus on the career that I wanted to take. And so there wasn't really necessarily like a movie or anything that really made me want to jump into film. It was more or less that I wanted to make stories. I wanted to tell the stories that I have and tell other people's stories, give a voice to those who don't have a voice. I'm not very good at writing, and so book writing has never really been my thing. So I try to think of other alternatives. I try to think about maybe YouTube. So I tried to do YouTube for a while. But with YouTube, I could never get enough actors for what I wanted to do. I could never get a budget or kind of the production that I wanted to do. And so I was thinking, how can I get this production? How can I do what I'm wanting to do with the stories that I want to tell? And so I thought, making movies, making films is exactly what I'm trying to do with YouTube, but can't do because of the restrictions that I have. So I really started trying to get into film. I made my company Lucky Pen Productions, and I set out a plan as to what films I want to make. Start studying into film a lot, because anything you can find is on YouTube, is on the internet, just in general. You can find any kind of source material to learn something. And so I just really dove into the internet, trying to find anything I can on how to make films.
Interesting. If we could go into the YouTube story for a little bit, like what all were you doing on YouTube or trying to do? And is any of that still live?
So it is still live. It is very cringy at this point watching it back. I absolutely hate it. Because it again, it wasn't the production that I wanted. So looking back, it was very cringy, and my voice was so much different. I go back to those videos and I don't quite care for them. But yeah, they're still live on my old YouTube channel. I haven't posted there in like 2 years, I think. As much as I like to get back into it, I know it's not going to be what I want it to be. But a lot of it was a lot of role playing. Games like Star Wars, Rainbow Six Siege is one of my favorites. There, I used to play a game called Ungathered, which is just a small indie game. It was great for role playing at the time. So I mean, I would try to dive into those games and either just have fun times with friends, or I'd try to tell a story and role play with it. And again, it with the limitations that I had, I couldn't really do anything with it. But I'm kind of proud of some of the videos, even if they are very cringy.
So it sounds like at that point you were already kind of doing your self research on what it takes to make films and the financial side of things like
Right.
that.
Right. Trying to look into what I needed to do. Of course, I was limiting myself with the game mechanics at the time when it comes to the stories I was trying to play. So I was trying to think, if I need to, like with Ungathered, for example, it's a great small game. But it had like a bunch of servers. It was a multiplayer game. So I was trying to think, if I need to get my own server, could I just shop into any kind of role-playing server, anything like that? If I, how many people I needed. And that kind of really paved the way into saying, like, how much money do I need for this production? How much actors do I need? Looking back at it now, it's like I was trying to create my own production, but limiting myself.
Gotcha. Do you have siblings, or were you always kind of working with friends?
I do have siblings. I'm the middle child, and so I have an older brother, younger sister. But they never really, other than my brother, once we were playing games like the Jack and Dexter and Star Wars Battlefront 2. Other than that, it was pretty much all by myself. Other than just a few online friends that I used to have.
Gotcha. That's cool. So being homeschooled and stuff, what's that experience like from the parents' perspective? I mean, are you getting, what kind of support are you getting? Do you get support? Do you get pushback wanting to go into film? Was there any of those dynamics? Just curious on that.
Well, at first, I'd say there probably was a little bit of hesitation from my parents. I'd say, especially on my father's end, he probably was a little scared knowing that I want to go into film. And I'm very much an all or nothing kind of person. I'm either going to put everything I can into it, or I'm not going to really care that much at all. And so once he saw that I was really trying to get into film, he was probably like, oh no, this is, we gotta drive him a little bit the other way. But no, I think now looking at it, he probably really does respect it, because he watches movies, he enjoys movies, and he doesn't really know like the production behind it. None of my parents were ever interested in film, and so they were confused as to how something like that gets made. They didn't really understand the process and how likely it can be to really get into this opportunity. So there was a little bit of hesitation, but I think now that I'm really, like, I just created my company. It's an official company now. Lucky Pen Productions. It's its own business. And so I think after that, they really see that this is something that can't be done, that I'm going to get this done. So I think a lot more now that they're definitely supporting me with what I'm trying to do.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I feel like it'd probably be similar with me. Like my world for the past decade has been writing code, so nothing too exciting about that. It's
Right.
someone could just sit next to me and just look at the tools that I use and like try to explain like, well, this block of codes means this, and that's kind of like the insight. Not as extensive as filmmaking.
Right.
So I do want to get into the business side of things, but I guess maybe prior to that or going into that, when did you start getting connected within the community, like the film community that's here? What was some of that process like?
Well, with kind of the Northwest Arkansas film community, I'd say it really started whenever I joined the River Valley Film Society. That's kind of when it really started. I was talking to a few people before that. Most notably Brandon Goldsmith, which if anyone is in the Northwest Arkansas area, you most likely know that name. He's making a film right now called The Western District, and I have a role in it. And after getting to that, whenever I was on set, I was really getting to talk to a lot of people in the film, people who believe in film. At first, I thought, there's not really anyone in the film industry around this area. But whenever I was able to go to that, to act in that film, I got to really talk to my people, the people who are also dedicated in film. And I got to know that I wasn't alone in the industry, that there is honestly a pretty wide selection of people here in the Northwest Arkansas area, and that there are other people who are dedicated to doing what I'm doing. Before that, I'd say I was probably thinking about moving to a different location, either Atlanta or not, definitely not California. I couldn't do California, but Atlanta for sure. But after getting to really know the people through the Western District, I knew that it could be done here. It could be done in Fort Smith, much less Northwest Arkansas, much less Arkansas in general. Especially now, you can definitely see that it's getting done. I believe they're building like a new film lot or something like that here around the Fort Smith area. So, I mean, more than anything, film is really growing in this area, and it's awesome to see that happening. Right now is the best time to get into film. And I'm happy I had the opportunity with the Western District. So I got to meet a lot of those people and really start building up those connections with other film enthusiasts.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Have you spent any time in like, Central Arkansas? Visited any of the film festivals here, met any of the people in the community here?
I unfortunately have not. I really plan to get into film festivals this next coming year. Unfortunately, with COVID, and I still have a day job myself, I don't have a lot of time to really dedicate everything I have to film.
Yeah.
Which is very unfortunate, because you need money for film, but unfortunately you have to live a day job before you can really start making money off films, because you have to have the money. So I've unfortunately not had a lot of time to focus on everything to do with film and going to film festivals, though I would really like to.
Yeah.
I just missed the River Valley Films Festival, and I was really sad about that, because I really wanted to go to that. But no, I do plan on hopefully next year really getting into film and really getting into the film festivals and more in the community. Like I've already gotten to know a ton of different people in the community, but next year I'd really like to start going to some of the festivals and really start showing my films at the festivals for sure.
Definitely. It's still a goal of me. Like right now, I'm just trying to get to these film festivals just to meet the people and see what everyone's working on, and just try to just absorb anything that I can. But I'm same boat, with the day job, and especially when you have family and kids, it's hard to kind of devote, because film festivals, you're looking at potentially days to a week of time for things. Could you give more context on the River Valley Film Society? This is the first I've heard of this.
Yeah, I think it was back in 2019 it was made. I have a very bad memory, so I may be butchering about it, but I think it was made by Brandon Goldsmith himself. And I remember the first meeting we had gone to, we had just shown a bunch of films. And again, that was just a really good chance to really get to know more people in the industry and really getting to see some other faces. Because whenever you go to festivals like that, you really get to meet your people. If you're, as enthused about film as I am, you know, people talking about films the same way you talk about it. You just geek out over, which films are your favorite, which ones had flaws and did really good on certain aspects. You really get to meet those people. So the first meeting that I went to, I got to meet a lot of really cool people. I unfortunately have not had a lot of contribution. I don't think that's a word, but I've not really been able to contribute to the Film Society, River Valley Film Society, as much as I'd like to. Again, just with the day job and not having a lot of time to do anything. But Brandon Goldsmith has done a really, really good job on building up that society and really bringing more film enthusiasts to the Fort Smith, Arkansas area. Because again, right now it's really blowing up and it's really getting a lot bigger in the film community. Because I think a lot of people were like me, where they didn't think that film was happening in Fort Smith, much less Arkansas. So they are thinking that they had to go somewhere else. But now with the Film Society, people are being able to see that there are other enthusiasts such as myself, and that there is a community around this, and there is other people who are willing to help make films and willing to be there to make those films.
Well, that sounds like I'm going to give myself homework and do some research in that, because I'm, outside of Little Rock, but the bulk of my time has been what's going on here in the Little Rock area. Right. And I do pay attention to like Northwest Arkansas, but haven't paid much attention to Fort Smith, but I will do so now. So let's go into your business. So, one goal I have with this show is, I'm trying to reach people that are definitely aspiring to be creatives in some way, like maybe they have interest in, especially with those who are interested in film. What was the process like to start your business? What were some things you learned? Because you said you just now are like an official business. So what did you have to do to get to this point? What was the initial idea? How'd you come up with the name? That as well.
That's a good question. Well, it was a very long, hard process to get anything done with the company. Because again, I thought of the original idea when I was 15. It was back in 2006 or 2016. I was only 15, and growing up there was always that doubt that anything can ever be done. But again, I'm that type of person that I put all or nothing into something. So I was thinking there's going to be two outcomes to my life at this point. Either I'm going to make my company and make films and do what I want to do with my life, or I'm definitely going to die trying and spending my entire life trying to get this company made and trying to get anything done. So it was a very long process, but I knew no matter what, I'm going to get it done. So, I mean, in 2016, I officially made the Lucky Pen Productions name itself. It was just a name at the time. And then over the years, I just been trying to find different things that the company can do. I've thought about, toy designs, app designs, books, short stories, YouTube videos, and of course, film. And with my company, I definitely plan on doing more than just film. I have tons of different ideas and tons of different things that I have planned. Just film is right now the main thing, and will always be probably the main thing with my company. But the name itself is it's a weird story. It's not anything that's like super extravagant. I don't think that's a word either, but super great and big. But basically around 2015, I think, I can't remember exactly when, but me and my family went on a cruise. And so on the cruise, I had met just a bunch of different people that I grown really fond of. And at the kind of ending days of the cruise, I knew that we were never going to see each other ever again. And the thing about me is I'm a very sentimental person. So I like to hold on to things, hold on to random things and names and stories and all that kind of stuff. So I figured what I do is I bought this t-shirt and I want to get their signature on it. But I didn't have a pen. So I went around the entire ship and I asked pretty much everyone if they had a pen on them. And eventually I met a bartender who said that he had a pen and he'd give it to me as long as I was sure that I would give it back to him. And so I did what I needed to do. I got the signatures and all that kind of stuff, got their autographs. And I put the pen in my pocket and I totally forgot it was in there. I totally forgot that I had a pen in my pocket and I kept it, and I kept it all the way home till eventually I pulled it down. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I was supposed to bring this to somebody, but I completely forgot. So I kept it. And for a long time, I just it was just a pen, it was just a Sharpie. So I just kept it with me. But again, I'm a very sentimental kind of person, so I wouldn't just throw away something like that because I thought it was a funny story.
Yeah.
And I would always kind of carry it with me. And I'm not very much someone that believes in luck or anything, but I always kind of figured it was my lucky pen. And so when it was time to kind of create a company, I was thinking of a bunch of different names. I came up with tons and tons of different names. But I knew I wanted it to be something that was really special to me. And again, since I am such a sentimental kind of person, and I remember the stories that I got to have with those people on that cruise and stealing a pen by accident, I thought, Lucky Pen Productions sounds pretty cool. And at first it was going to be Lucky Pen Studios, but then I was thinking, well, no, because I want to do more than just make film. So Lucky Pen Production just kind of happened, and I wrote it down. I really liked it, and ever since then, that was kind of the name that I had.
Man, that's fantastic. So I'm curious now if this bartender remembers. Maybe one day in the future you'll get a message and you can send the pen back.
I don't want to send it back. I mean, I still have it to this day. And if you ever ask for it, he's sorry, sir, but you're not getting your pen back. It's mine now.
Oh man, that's a great story. So that's the name portion of it. So what were some of the hurdles you had in actually starting the business itself?
Right. A lot of it was just kind of figuring out what I wanted to do with it. It was before I really decided that film is what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to put some kind of element of storytelling in it because I just loved making stories, and I wanted to be something that I could give to others. I didn't want it to just be my company. I wanted to be able to, again, something I say a lot is I want to give people the chance to have a voice who do not have a voice. Be able to have people tell stories that should be told but can't tell it because of restrictions like how I've always had. Because in my philosophy, I believe everyone has a story. I mean, life itself is insane and crazy, and everyone has a story. Some may be a little boring, but everyone has a story. Just some people are made to tell it or not. And I want to be able to be sure that I can tell my story, and I want to be able to sure that a lot of people can tell their story. So I knew I wanted it to be about storytelling, but I wasn't sure how until I kind of decided film was probably the best way to go. Again, some of the hurdles was probably just, being in Arkansas and always being told that, a job like that is for the lucky or the rich or, the people born into that job. And I was not born into film. So that was kind of the long process. And a lot of that time that I spent knowing that I wanted to make this company was just a lot of research. I'd only started making films really in 2019, which is 2 years now, almost 3 years.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time from 2016 to 2019, a lot of that was just research. What can I get done with my company? What can I get done right now? But I couldn't ever get anything done. I've written probably hundreds of different scripts of what projects I want to get done, but I would always think, well, I don't have the money for this. So it took a long time for me to eventually make my first film because I need to think of money. I need to think of actors. I had the same limitations that I had before with making YouTube videos. How can I actually get something done? And again, it wasn't really till the Western District that I really was able to find actors, find a community, and really actually start getting stuff done. So a lot of the time that I made the company was really just research and trying to learn how to do what I'm trying to do, and if it's even possible.
Wow. So let's go into your film. So you have one you're working on now that you're doing a crowdfunding campaign, but how many films did you work on prior to this? And within those, did you do similar crowdfunding process, or was it something completely different?
So no, this is actually the first one that has any kind of crowdfunding project. It's really the first one that has a budget at all.
Okay.
Ungathered is the name of the film, but I made two other films before this one. The Bench, which was the first one, and then Rest at Gunpoint, which I made earlier this year. And those films, they didn't have any kind of budget to them other than just what was in my pockets, pretty much. And so this is the first film. Ungathered is the first film that really has any kind of budget, any kind of crowdfunding. A good majority of that's probably still going to come out of my pocket, but it's the first one that I'm trying to actually seek out film. And now that I've made two other films, a few more people are actually interested in my company and in my films. I've grown kind of a small little community of people who actually do support my company. So I've figured, this is probably a good time to actually make a half decent film with good quality, and to ask if anyone wanted to donate into it. And I'm not someone that likes to ask for money. Probably just something that I'm a little bit too prideful about. But
Yeah.
now I knew that I wanted this next film to really be a lot better than the other two. Not just in terms of story, because there's not really a budget on story, just a budget on quality, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so I knew I'd want this one to be higher quality more than anything, because Ungathered is a very important story to me, because it speaks a lot about abuse, especially physical abuse, much less mental abuse, all this kind of stuff. So that's a very important story to me, because I've known tons and tons and tons of people who've gone through abusive relationships and are still going through those abusive relationships, and just being told that that's the only way a relationship can go. So they're, kind of being manipulated that way. So I knew I wanted this film to be a lot higher quality.
Yeah.
I knew I had to get a budget. I wanted to get some actually decent equipment. And unfortunately, she shouldn't be here, or she wasn't able to be here. But Crystal Woodham has been amazing this production. I knew, for another thing, is that I wanted to kind of step away from directing, because the other two films I did direct, and I knew I wanted to be more on the producing side, because again, I want to be able to give people the chance to tell their story. So this is the first one of the three films that I'm just solely producing instead of directing, which is a scary idea, but Crystal has been absolutely amazing. And she was able to get us Charlie. He's a very great camera guy, and a guy named Lon, who's a great audio guy. So this next film is going to have really great camera quality and really great audio quality, which is something I really, really want to have, because again, this is just a very important story. I don't want people to kind of skip over this film because of the quality. Like with the other two, it was just me and my camera and a very small crew. And looking at the quality, I could see why people may want to skip over it, because no one really wants to watch a bad quality film. No matter how good the story is, if it doesn't look great, no one's going to really want to watch it. So being able to have actually decent quality in this film makes me excited, because I think people are actually going to want to watch it and actually enjoy it, which is something super exciting, because it's such an important story, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Yeah, I partially agree with that. In these days, with all the access to some technology we have, quality is the thing. But I do believe if the story is sound, you can look past the quality a bit. Going into your previous two films, so it sounds like you've worked with Crystal before. Is there anyone else, like crew wise, that's you kind of stuck with through all three films?
Well, our main actor, Wolf Grolke, who plays the old man. One thing about this film here, Ungathered, and The Bench, and Rest at Gunpoint, is that it's all the same series. It's a 5-part series that I've been working on. Ungathered being part 3. And so we have the one actor that's in all 3 of them, and I'm going to be in all 5, Wolf Grolke, who plays the old man, and he's absolutely awesome. For the first 2 films, he's been doing it completely free, which
Mhm.
is awesome. You can't really ask for anything better than completely free,
Right.
but also great quality, because he's an amazing actor. I think he's really grown into the character that is showing there on the screen. He's really taken the character and made his own, I guess is better wording. Um, because I know, like, I'd write the script and he would see some of the lines and he'd be like, well, maybe he would say this differently or this differently. And I'd be like, yeah, that he would probably say something a lot more wise. Which it helps that Wolf is much older than
Mhm.
me, because I'm only 20 at this point, and so I still have a lot of life to live, a lot of different wisdom to get to know. And so he's much older, of course. So the old man, the character, is supposed to be a very, very wise person. And so it helps having Wolf be older, because he and also is a very wise person because of that, because he's experienced a lot more life. So it's cool having him look into the character and being able to edit the script a little bit to to match the character and the emotion of the character.
Mhm.
There's plenty of lines in both films, and I'm sure in Ungathered there's still the same thing's going to happen, but there's plenty of lines in the other two films that he's taken and just made so much better, so much better.
Hmm. Being a 5-part series, are you is the collection itself going after this single awareness, or does each section of the film focus on something different?
So every single part, every single film in this series is going to focus on a different problem, I would say. Part one, The Bench, was just about loneliness. A boy meets the old man on a bench, and he's just kind of been left alone. His friends ditched him, all this kind of stuff. He's just generally a lonely person.
Mm.
Part two was Ungathered, and that was a lot about kind of the choices that we make. It was about a thief who robs a gas station, and the old man talks to him and just basically says that no one is bringing him to this point to rob a gas station and to kind of make his life decisions but himself. It was the thief who brought himself there, and that's made his life decisions. So the part two was a lot about choice
Mm.
and our destiny and how we react to our destiny. And again, part three is a lot about abuse, and how we need to, a lot of people need to accept that abuse doesn't need to be in the relationship, that love is not abuse. So all five films, they do all focus on different problems that I say we go through. I won't spoil the other two films, but it's the same thing pretty much. The old man basically shows up and he talks to these people who are going through these crises, that a lot of people can relate to, especially now more than ever. And he just kind of talks to them and tries to give them a different perspective.
Mhm.
And the thing about the old man is that he shows up out of nowhere.
Mm.
He's kind of, a lot of people said that he's like a ghost or like a spirit or an angel or something, because if you've ever watched the other two films, he just shows up out of nowhere
Mm.
and then he disappears once he's done. Once he shows you that there is another way to look at your situation, he's gone. Um, and the point of that really is that it's kind of our own inner wisdom a bit, because we all know what is right and wrong.
Mhm.
Internally, we should. Not everyone, but most of us know what is right and wrong. And so the thing about him is that he's pretty much who you need him to be at that time.
Mm.
Like with the boy who was on the bench, and the old man shows up out of nowhere. Um, he talks to him that there are people who have to fade away from your life, that have to go away, and it's not something that just happens. It's something that those people choose. They choose that they don't want you in their life, and that just gave the boy another perspective. Um, and same thing with Breast at Gunpoint and Ungathered and the rest of the films. It's just going to be the old man showing you a different perspective, and then he disappears because he isn't a human necessarily. He's more or less what you need him to be.
Mm.
A lot of people say that they think he's a spirit, a ghost, an old man who can run very, very fast out of shot. A bunch of different things. He is exactly who you need him to be.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that reminds me of some films. I'd like that, and these are kind of films that I like. This, to me, it sounds almost like character study.
Pretty much.
Wow, that's great. The first two films, can people go watch these now, or are you kind of holding on to them until the collection's done?
No, they're out right now. The Bench and Rest at Gunpoint, you can find them on the Lucky Pen Productions YouTube page, just Lucky Pen Productions. And so, I mean, we got the trailers on there, and then of course we got the actual films. I'm hoping for Ungathered that we'll probably have it on Amazon, because Amazon is super easy for independent creators like myself to put their work on there. And since this one's a little bit higher quality, I'd like it to be more than just on a YouTube channel. Same with the future films. I want to really make it more than just a YouTube channel. But the other two films, they are on YouTube right now, and anyone can watch them.
Great. Are they all like short based films, feature length films, kind of in between?
Yeah, they're right now just short films. Kind of remembering the top of my head, I think The Bench is only like 6 minutes, and Rest at Gunpoint is about 7 minutes. Ungathered is going to be, I think, another 7 or 8 minutes. So they're all short films, and all 5 of the films, once they're finished, I plan on making an actual full-length film after it, where all 5 of these characters who are in all 5 of the short films, they all come together and try to find out who the old man is. And that's going to be a full-length film. So all 5 of these films that are short films are all kind of leading up and building up to the conclusion of the story, which is going to be the main film.
That's really cool. Oh man. Are you hoping to partner with organizations? It seems like, especially with Ungathered, it is a heavy subject and very sensitive one. Do you look to partner with any organizations to help bring awareness?
Well, I mean, that hasn't been really discussed between me or Crystal quite yet, but I can totally see us doing that. I know either in the beginning or the end of the film, we're definitely going to keep the kind of crisis hotline number for people in abusive relationships. I don't really know the name of it, if that's even the name, but I'm hoping that depending on how much money the film makes through Amazon, that I can definitely donate a good amount to an organization that centers around abuse. Again, that just depends on how much money the film makes. It make it $2, and that's just not really enough to donate. But yeah, I can totally see myself trying to work with a different organization. That's something I'll have to definitely look into, or any other producers that may want to be interested in being part of the film. And that's just another thing that you can do with the Kickstarter is if you are interested and want to support this, then you can give to the Kickstarter.
Yeah. I've got a few more questions. I know we're kind of getting tight on time, but a few more questions if that's okay.
Okay.
I like the idea and the sound of this initial collection of films. Do you have any other future projects you could share just inside? I'm just really curious now to see like other kind of projects you'd want to work on.
I have so many projects. Like I said,
like, do you have like a dream? Like, what is the dream film? Like, what is like if you have like a bucket list of films you want to work on, like what is the one you really want to work on?
So, I mean, I don't ever expect myself to, stop making films just because I made one big film. But one film I'm super excited about, and I can't give a lot of information on it just because it's probably years and years in the future.
Yeah.
But I'm right now it's going under the name Project 3, because I can't release its actual name because it would be too much of a spoiler. But it's going to be a horror film, which is different than what I've made so far, which I plan on making lots of different horror films because I really love horror. But it's a horror film based off of a video game, an independent video game that I got the rights to make from the person who made the game. I'm trying not to release too much information because it's going to be a really big project. It's because this game specifically that I'm talking about, is a game that I really, really loved, and I really loved the story of it. And me and the creator of it kind of became pretty good friends over time. And so I wrote the script, and it's already a finished script and everything, but it's going to be the budget that really kills it,
Yeah.
because it's going to be an expensive film. It's going to be a film that's going to be really, really hard to make. But out of all the films I have currently underway that's being worked on right now, it's probably the main one that I'm wanting to look for, and I'm very excited to have that out at some point in the future, depending on whenever that even comes out.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Horror is interesting for me because I've gotten like just more and more in love with horror over the past probably 2 years. And like as we've been chatting and getting to know each other, now I've been starting to think of like, do I want to like look into doing a horror focused production company? Yeah, man, that's cool. We'll have to talk. We'll have to share stories offline. Because there's a lot like I'd love to dive into, and there's some stuff coming out I'm looking forward to. Cool. So a couple more. So going back into kind of if you're thinking of like aspiring creatives, filmmakers that are watching this, through what you've done so far, which is incredible, like what are some like high level learning points you think would be beneficial for like aspiring filmmakers?
As in like just good ways to learn more.
Yeah, just learn more. Like if you had any aha moments of like if you could go back and change something, just some good advice.
Yeah. Take your time with film, which is ironic coming from me because it took me like 4 years to make my first film. But take your time, because even with the bench, I tried to make that as great as quality as possible. And whatever you have in your head quality wise, it's not going to be that great if it's your first few films. I know the first film had a lot of audio problems, and so did Rest at Gunpoint had a lot of audio problems. So take your time with being sure that the film is as good as you want it to be. Because though I still love the stories from The Bench and Rest at Gunpoint, there's still lots of problems with it. There's tons and tons of problems. If I could go back and remake them, I would, and I'd definitely make them probably a lot better quality than what they are now. But take your time with film. Try to get in as much in the community as possible, because you can't do everything yourself. And if you are either a director or producer, learn the art of delegation, because it is probably the most important thing you're going to be doing as a director or producer, trying to find out who can do what job. And you want to hire the right person for the right job. Otherwise, your film will be not great. And again, just with story versus quality, I do agree that some stories can be good even if they don't have great quality, but ultimately viewers are going to want to pay attention to it if it is good quality. Most people generally will pay attention to a film if it's better quality. So try to go for good quality. If it can't be done, don't worry about it, because if it's your first few films, it can't be done, it won't be done. But if you can try to get great quality, try to get to know the community, and they will help you get great quality. I could not have Ungathered be as great as it's going to be now without Charlie or Lon, or much less Crystal, out of anyone. It would have been just like the other two films. So try to get to know the community, and they will help you make quality films, and then you can work on the story. That's probably the most important thing. And try to do as much research as you can. There's tons and tons of different things that you can get for free, much less paid for, that can give you any answer you're looking for. I know one thing that I used a lot for my kind of research was Masterclass, which is a service. It's paid for. It's pretty expensive too, but it's a really good service if you're trying to learn how to do really anything, much less film. But again, you can find anything online on the internet. So don't feel like you have to go to school. You can find out anything if it's film. And that's pretty much all that I can really suggest is take your time, get to know the community, and try to research. Do what you can to learn what you're trying to do. I saw a quote once, and I don't remember who made it exactly, but it was basically, there's two types of people in the film industry. Those people who want to make films and feel and like making films, and the people who have to make films. And only the people who have to make films, and that's what they have to do for their lives, those are the people who succeed. And so if film is something that you're dedicated in, you have to give it everything. Especially if you're in an area like Arkansas that isn't well known in film, it's going to be much harder. So you have to have that dedication and have to need to make films. So as long as you're one of those types of people, then you should be good. You should be fine. You'll get there eventually.
Love it. Maybe offline we'll follow up on the masterclass. If you remember any of the courses you took, we can link those below. Man, I'd love to get masterclass as a sponsor.
That would be awesome.
That would be incredible.
They're awesome.
Yeah, my world, it'd be like we've used Treehouse a lot to learn like coding and tech, and they're pretty fantastic, and they've always been very supportive on like education and getting new developers. So yeah, I need to find someone to talk to at masterclass.
Yeah.
Cool,
Yeah,
man.
sure.
Well, thank you so much. I learned a lot. I love hearing these stories, and I'm excited about checking out your films and Ungathered. So just to wrap up, let people know where they can find you. And of course, I'll link anything you want linked. We'll link it below.
Yeah. Well, again, the best way to support Ungathered is, of course, the Kickstarter. And I can try to share the Kickstarter as much as you would like. But the best way to kind of keep in touch with the film and with Lucky Pen Productions in general is we have a Facebook page, just Lucky Pen Productions. That's where you can find the newest updates, newest kind of behind the scenes stuff, and where you can even find the Patreon, which is the best way to find exclusive content like behind the scenes. And I even release some of the scripts that I write on there. So that's another great way to support. But just to kind of keep in touch, the Facebook page is the best place to go for anything like that.
Cool. Well, like I said, we'll link everything below, and just go. Let's go support Ungathered.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, very welcome. Thanks so much for coming on. All right. Thank you so much for watching and or listening to this episode of Take 25. I think there's a lot of very valuable nuggets you can find within this episode. You definitely see within the film community that there are some core things, some core pieces of advice everyone should stick to, especially if you're aspiring to be a filmmaker. So any of the links will be in the description. So I'll link to the Kickstarter campaign, to the production Facebook page, and some other stuff as well. I know we mentioned Masterclass in this. If anyone happens to be employed at Masterclass and wants to sponsor this episode, that would be incredible. I haven't dived into sponsors or anything like that yet, but it's something that's definitely on the radar. So Masterclass would love to be able to bring you on as a sponsor and get more aspiring filmmakers to your platform so they can learn. So once again, thank you so much. Please be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you're on a podcast service, follow. Most importantly, go check out Jonah's Kickstarter campaign. You can read on more information there. Be sure to back the project if you're able to, or share this within your network. Share it to other aspiring filmmakers or anyone that may be interested in backing this project. I know he's pushing for higher quality in this third film in a series, so we want to get him all the support we can. Once again, any relative links will be below. Thanks so much again. This was really fun. I've got another episode coming up here in a couple of weeks. Maybe it's 1 or 2 weeks that it's going to be another film focused podcast, but it's for upcoming events, which is going to be pretty cool. So if you're based here in Central Arkansas, something to look forward to. So be on the lookout for that episode. I do have a few other creatives I've been reaching out to, so I'm trying to get a few more scheduled because I know this year's wrapping up. My goal for this season is to get to 25 episodes, so I am pushing towards that. So once again, be on the lookout for new episodes every Tuesday if I'm able to do that. Once I get my socials up, I'll be able to promote those more effectively so you know when the new episodes are going to drop. And thanks again. I hope you able to connect with Lucky Pen Productions. Go see what Jonah is working on. It is possible we may do a follow-up episode. We did try to get his director, Crystal, on. Unfortunately, with timing, we weren't able to. But like I said, we may be able to do a follow-up episode where we can get a little bit more insight into the films that they've worked on together and get you a little bit more inside knowledge into what it's like to make films from a director's viewpoint and from the production viewpoint. And as always, any guests, we're welcome to bring on multiple guests. I'm always on the lookout for more talent here in Arkansas to be able to help share their stories. So a little bit longer outro than normal, but if you stuck around, please hit me up on Twitter and let me know that you made it to the end. Once again, thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one.
I'm sweating. Yeah. In 2010, thought I was doing something. And now I'm rapping.